in verse 26b, David says, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistines that he should defy the armies of the living God?" David doesn't call Goliath the champ from the Philistines, but he calls him the uncircumcised Philistine. David was motivated to defeat Goliath, even his brother tried to stop him. He cannot stand before the Israelite by standing doing nothing while somebody ridicules the living God of Israel. In verse 32-33 says, David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." But what King Saul replied? "You are not able to go out against these Philistines and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." You know, David simply expressed his will, his opinion to King Saul so he can fight Goliath. But what King Saul said to David, for me, seems like King Saul underestimate what David capable of. Saul used the term young man. For me, he's underestimate David itself. And Saul used the term young in contrast to the professional warrior term. David was disqualified because his age. David was disqualified because of his size. And David was disqualified by King Saul because he's inexperienced. When Saul says that, David doesn't stop there. But David says in verse 34-36, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear come and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God." My brother and sister, David was motivated and confident that he can defeat the Philistines. Let's turn over to verse 37. "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of these Philistines."
Amen.
This is the main point of this chapter. David has expressed his faith to the Lord, that the Lord can rescue him from the paw of lion, from the paw of bear, and God also, the Lord, can rescue him from the hand of the Philistine.
Amen.
David have a courage and faith to fight the Philistines because he trusted God fully. David have a big courage and a big faith because he has experience in the past on how God taking care of him from the lion and the bear. David expressed his courage and faith to fight the Philistine. And Saul says to David, "Go and the Lord be with you." You know what happened next? Saul asked David to come with him, and he dressed David with his coat of armor, and he asked David also to put on a bronze helmet, and he fastened David also with his sword. And when David tried to move with his sword and his armor, he not used to it. He cannot do that. And in the story says, David says, "I cannot go on this because I'm not used to them." So he took all of them off. And in verse 40 to 47 says, Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Verse 41, Meanwhile the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. And the Philistine looked at David and saw he was a little boy. He was a little man, but glowing with health and handsome. And Goliath despised him. He said to David, Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his God. Come here, he said, I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. And what David says to the Philippines, You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of army Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. I will strike you down, and I will cut your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is God in Israel.
Amen.
You know, David just pick up. David just used his sling and he pick up 5 smooth stones to fight the Philistine. He doesn't use Saul armor. He doesn't use Saul sword because he's not used to the armor and he's not used to the sword. When the Philistine looked at David, he just looked David as a little boy. And he said, Am I a dog that you come with me with stick? You know, David's confidence in his faith says, You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty.
Amen.
This is what David has. He has a fully confidence that he can defeat Goliath, the champ from the Israelites, the champ from the Philistine. David has demonstrated a great courage that born from his faith to the Lord. David defeated the champs of the Philistine because he believed that the battle is the Lord. David had big courage and a big faith because he has experienced in the past how God taking care of him from the lion and the bear. God's promise is to fight for his people. In Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 1 to 4 says, When you go to war against your enemies and see horses and chariot and army greater than yours, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid of them, because the Lord your God, who brought you up from Egypt, will be with you. When you are about to go into a battle, the priest shall come forward and address the army, and he shall say, Hear Israel, today you are going into the battle against your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted, or do not be afraid. Do not panic, or be terrified by them. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight you against your enemy, to give you your victory.
Amen.
You know, when I read this, a few chapters from this Deuteronomy 20, verse 1 to 4, this is a truly God promise for us. We might not fight physically in a war zone, but we fight things that happen around us. This is a God promise for us to fight in our life. This is the great promise to us that God will go and fight for us. We might face an overwhelming situation, we might get scared, or we might get terrified of this life. But through this story tonight, David has shown to the Philistine that there is a living God in the Israelite.
Amen.
There's a living God who lives today. He showed to the Israelite that true faith can overcome fear. He remembered his past victories that the Lord had given him, and he trusted God fully, and he will continue to deliver victory over Goliath. And God did. And God did. God helped God helped David to defeat Goliath. What are you scared of? Do you have a courage of David to fight the giants? What is your giants today? Are you still scared? In Jeremiah 32 verse 17, Jeremiah says that, "A sovereign Lord, you have made the heaven and the earth, and by your great power, outstretched arm, nothing is too hard for you." My brother and sister, God created the heaven and the earth. God has a great power, and nothing is hard for God. What are you scared of? Nothing to be scared. We have nothing to be feared unless we forget that our God is alive. We have nothing to be feared unless we forget about God's providence in our life. May this short message will be a blessing to us tonight. May this short message will encourage us that we have nothing to fear of as long as God in our side. Thank you. Thank you
Amen.
for coming tonight, and may God bless you all.
Thank you.